Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about transit Mars making a square opposition or inconjunct aspect to one's natal Jupiter. Now, when we're talking about transits that involve Mars, this could be about energy, vitality, courage, fortitude, drive, motivation, anger, acrimony, initiative, enterprise. And when you have the transit of Mars, basically making an adverse aspect to one's natal Jupiter. When I say basically adverse aspect, I'm going to elaborate on that. What I'm saying is, okay, the squares and oppositions in astrology, of course, are adverse aspects. The inconjunct aspect can be seen as neutral, but an inconjunct aspect requires an adjustment, um, its transition, and those things can often be tension filled. They can have some exasperation connected with this. So collectively, I do see this really. It is basically an adverse aspect that is made. Now, when you have the transit of Mars basically making the adverse aspect to one's natal Jupiter, well, it may manifest in the energy, vitality, courage, fortitude, drive, motivation, anger, and acrimony, the initiative and enterprise. Well, this might could conflict with, could be some traveling abroad plans, going to a foreign country. If you're somewhat agitated, you may not feel like you're in the mood to be doing this. Uh, at this time, you might have less motivation and drive to do this. If you're in a position where it's mandatory to travel abroad and go to foreign countries, it's a little bit different, but you might not feel as up to it at this time. Now, Jupiter is also connected with higher education and college, so this could be a time where, if it's something where, you've been procrastinating for some time, and you wanted to do something, enroll in higher education or college, it might be a time where you might even be procrastinating a little bit more because Mars is connected with our drive, our initiative, and it might be harder to take the initiative in these actions at this time. And when the transit ends, that could be more an appropriate time where you feel like you might have the exuberance more to do so. And also, when you look at this, well, Jupiter is also connected. Again, Jupiter is connected with exuberance and enthusiasm, and you might not. This could be a time where you have to be, careful because Mars is about our energy and vitality, and it could be a time where there can be distorted levels of energy and being maybe over enthusiastic or over exuberant, over optimistic, and really in what you're trying to do at this time, as far as say accomplishing some physical feat. If you're somebody say that works out vigorously, say you have like your Mars maybe say in Virgo, or Virgo could be health related activities. Sagittarius could be sports related. Just be careful that you're not trying to do something as far as overkill, something too strenuous that you might wind up actually hurting yourself doing, thinking you can do a lot more than you're actually capable of. Now, Jupiter is also associated with expanding horizons and going outside the box, basically. At this time, it might be harder to summon maybe the courage and fortitude to do this at this time, that drive, that motivation, in order to do so. Say if your natal Jupiter is in Capricorn, it could be connected with career ambitions and industry and some kind of business, or something that could be Capricorn related, maybe even some position like in dentistry, or doing something with accounting or mathematics. This could be also to remember that Jupiter's connected with the truth and the law. And the thing about this is, this could be a time where you might need to be a little extra prudent as far as your expression of anger and acrimony, and because Jupiter again is connected with the law, and it could increase the propensity for a violent act, I would say, which would be for adversarial with the law, and could get you in trouble. at this time, and it might be a situation where you might have more battles with Jupiterian people, whether they could be people in sports, it could be, doesn't have to be a famous sports athlete, it could be somebody, prominent on a recreational level in your area, somebody in religion or publishing or travel, somebody like a travel agent, anybody that can be, Jupiter type profession, even somebody with the law, and I would say that could even include, law enforcement. Uh, and as far as anatomically speaking, Jupiter is associated with the hips, the thighs, pancreas, liver, and sciatic nerve. And Mars can be associated, with physical injuries. So, uh, it's at times, this could be, well, I should say, really, there is slightly greater, proclivity to have some kind of injury with one of the things I just mentioned that's anatomically connected with Jupiter. And the thing is to avoid impulsive, actions which may lead, to something, might aggravate an injury that already might be in that area. One of those things I just described, or or a problem, with one of those, you know, body parts, whatever that are associated with Jupiter. Um, it can be also too when you look at this as well. Jupiter. Well, actually, Jupiter is connected with obesity, and it can be maybe there's lack of expending energy at this time may lead to this. Might be a time where you may put on more weight if your energy level happens to be low. And another thing, how this transit could manifest as well. Sometimes this may give distorted anger or energy levels. You might be, vacillating from one point to another. Remember, Jupiter can distort and enlarge, and when you have this, the transit of Mars basically making an adverse aspect to one's natal Jupiter, it might distort, the energy. At times you might feel like you could accomplish just about anything with abundance of energy, and other times it might just go, I'd say, maybe completely the other way. Um, it can be a time too. When you look at this as well, Jupiter is connected with joviality, jocularity, so it might also be a time where maybe you're just not, driven at this time to really, have the enthusiasm or what have you. It might be lack of enthusiasm. Maybe it's connected with showing a lack of humor at this time, or anger, or there might be some anger issues that are conflicting with you being more humorous, more jocular at this point in time. And Jupiter is also associated with extravagance, so you have to be careful that, impulsive actions, it could even be just going to buy something, and that might be a little out of your budget, just to be really careful at this time if you're somebody that's involved, in gambling and betting, where it's legal, and you're doing, it could be a time where you might really need to think a little bit more prior to acting, as it might lead to some heavy loss. And another thing too is that Jupiter is connected with philosophy, your beliefs, opinions. So there may be more contentious situations regarding your belief system at this time, and more arguments in connection with it. Say if your natal Jupiter is in Scorpio, it could be something connected with the occult, or with astrology. It might be your beliefs on death. Um, and it could be more arguments connected with it at this time. Now, another way that this transit may manifest, this could be, again, reiterating what I said previously, it could be not really motivated or driven to go outside the box, so to speak, to expand your horizons. Say if the natal Jupiter is in Aquarius, as an example, it could be doing things like, say, with astrology or astronomy, innovation, computers, electronics, altruism, humanitarianism, maybe something like being like a social advocate or working with human rights. Another thing too is that there may be more contentious situations, or more proclivity for that, contentious situations with people that might be philosophers, or could be professors in higher education, someone you may know at a religious congregation. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, could also be, say if your natal Jupiter is in Gemini as an example, it could be maybe some philosophy or belief, where you might feel that you just need to be, very versatile and diversified, and somebody else may argue, say, well, you're basically dissolving or say dissipating yourself to lack of an integrated purpose in your life, as an example. Now, also, Mars is associated with accidents, so there might be a greater propensity for accidents that might adversely affect Jupiterian things like long distance travel, or going, if you're enrolled in some college or university, doing things connected with that. It could be expanding horizons or just matters pertaining to religion. Uh, if Jupiter is in Pisces, as an example, your natal Jupiter is in Pisces, it could be some long distance sea voyage that maybe you were planning, and maybe something happens where physically there's an accident that might prohibit this at this time or delay it. Now, it could also be, there might be more of a tendency for confrontations with foreigners. It could be athletes in your, it could be local athletes in your area, people with the law, as some examples. It could be people prominent in some church in your area. Say if natal Jupiter is in Sagittarius, as an example, it could be maybe a Sagittarius sun, moon, or ascendant person, or simply one that embodies Sagittarius characteristics. There also may be greater proclivity for physical injury, which is Mars, of course, and may have a negative effect maybe on your enthusiasm and your exuberance, which is Jupiter. Now, say if the transit Mars is in Cancer, there may be an injury to the breast or chest area, the stomach area, even the ribs, which might really diminish. It could diminish your your enthusiasm, your exuberance at this time. And anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.